Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second season of the Politdigm podcast. My name is Red, and I am your host, and possibly the only host for this entire season. And for those who have watched the last episode, you are already aware of the new changes. But for those who aren't, in the last episode, episode 39 of the first season of the Politdigm podcast, we recorded a video where it was announced that Alpha was going to leave Politdigm, and then from here on out, I would be the only person hosting the podcast, and that the podcast would be moving to a monthly schedule, essentially. So at the first Wednesday of every month, this month it so happened to be the 1st of May, so it was nice. It's a nice little coincidence. Yeah, it's going to be every first Wednesday of the month. There's going to be in the morning, the blog is going to come out, and in the afternoon, the podcast is going to come out. This week, I decided to visit a topic which I wrote about a few weeks ago. By now, it's probably been a month, but it was the article where we talked about leftist content creation. And in that article, I briefly touched upon a specific content creator known as Libs of TikTok, which had been inciting violence due to their influence, and that basically with their influence and kind of rhetoric and kind of I don't know if to call it propaganda, but it does really feel like propaganda essentially against queer people and spreading misinformation, etc., etc. Basically, there was a crap ton of bomb threats that were called to a lot of pediatric hospitals because there was conspiracy theories essentially that these hospitals were doing reassignment surgeries on minors, which is not true. That doesn't happen. So it's it's all a whole conspiracy theory. The issue is that those conspiracy theories led to real people being in danger, and even if there was never an actual bomb in those hospitals, thankfully there was never an actual. It was always false threats. It's still very terrifying to suddenly, be faced with a bomb threat, and one day it might not just be a threat; it might actually happen. We don't know. So when I was writing that article, I had the idea of writing the article that I wrote for this month, and I decided to write about stochastic terrorism. It's a topic which I technically we've touched upon briefly a few times because we inevitably do, but we've never fully gone into the topic, and I think that it's something that people are aware of that it happens, but aren't quite as they don't really know formally what stochastic terrorism is. But yeah, that is the topic of today's episode. Of course, these new monthly episodes are going to be slightly different. They're going to be structured slightly different because I'm also going to be talking about what Politdigm is doing and giving a little bit of updates, et cetera, et cetera. So going to be trying new things, see how we want to do things. But yeah, as you might have noticed, depending on where you're listening to this, well, no, I'm pretty sure that regardless of where you're listening to this, the podcast is going to be looking different. For those who are on streaming services, you will notice that there's in some streaming services, not every streaming service, there's probably going to be some sort of video or visual in your screen, which was not there before. For those who are on YouTube, your screen is probably going to be looking different or is looking different. So for this season, we're trying some new things out, seeing how it goes. But yeah, before I do get into the episode, of course, if you enjoy our content, make sure to support us over at Patreon. If you would like to support us in non-monetary ways, you can check out our website. If you're on YouTube, the link is in the description below. If you are on streaming services, a little harder to get there, but if you go to Google and search Politdigm, it's probably going to be one of the first links that shows up. Regardless, if you want to support us in non-monetary ways, check out our website, learn how you can support us, and while you're there, interact, read our articles, whatever you feel like doing, of course. Other than that, check out our main channel, our main YouTube channel, where we started a new series. We talked about it in the last podcast episode. It's called Politdigm Sparks. It's a new series with very short episodes where each week we're going into very basic or even more further on, more, you know, I wouldn't say hard, but more complicated topics. But we're making them into short videos which are not exactly supposed to give you an answer, but rather they are simply going to offer you an insight, and they are the idea behind them is that they inspire you to go look for those answers, or that those videos should even raise more questions in your mind, so that you want to look further into politics and learn more and become more aware of the world around you. So yeah, go check that out. Go follow us on social media. On social media, we always post what we're working on. If there's some sort of emergency, that's where you'll get to know it. And of course, make sure to also join our Discord server. On our Discord server, you can talk with us, you can interact with us. You also know the latest news about Politdigm. And if you happen to support us on Patreon, don't forget that you have access to a Patreon only section where you can do a bunch of stuff. You can submit blog ideas, you can submit content ideas, you can do loads of stuff, and more importantly, you can submit questions for our podcast Q&A, because from now on, every month when this episode comes out, at the end of each episode of the podcast, we are going to try to answer some of the questions that you have posed. With that being said, we can now get into the article. This article is a little long. I wish it could have been longer. I wish I would have had more time to get it more in depth with with what I wrote. Unfortunately, I did not have time. Even now we've moved to a monthly model. I'm not only doing Politdigm. Unfortunately, I'm busy with other stuff, and so I did not have as much time as I wish I had. So I think the article is good, but I think it could have definitely been better. But I hope that in this episode I can make up for the shortcomings of it. Hold on, I gotta take a little sip. So the article is kind of spread out into 5 topics. The first one is unveiling stochastic terrorism tactics. And in this this section, I basically go into what stochastic terrorism is. The part of stochastic means that it's random. It's not planned. It's it happens spontaneously, in the sense that it's not going to be like there's terrorist attacks, which are clear, planned actions, which are not, you can't predict per se, but or something that has a plan. With stochastic terrorism, it's not like that, because stochastic terrorism is a very different type of violence. It's not a traditional form of terrorism, I guess, if you would like to put it in that sense. I don't know if I particularly agree with the name that's given, but it doesn't really matter, because what's important is what it is, and rather than the name that's given. That's not important. But yeah, stochastic terrorism is basically a form of violence that is done through communication, which involves creating mass hysteria. It's creating just this moral panic around a certain group of people, and basically doing the classic scapegoat method and being like, all right, this person is responsible for all your problems, or this person is responsible for the downfall of Western society, etc., etc. These people are degenerates. These people are monsters. These people are the Antichrist. Whatever moniker you want to give them, they are the worst thing that has ever happened to society. And they are going to replace us, or they're going to be the cause of our downfall. They're going to be the cause of the end of human society. Whatever mind-boggling theory you can come up with, it's something along those lines. And that is in itself the stochastic terrorism. It is that sort of violence, or kind of slow brainwashing and this propaganda that is pushed onto people surrounding a certain group. Because then there are going to be people who listen to that propaganda, who listen to those messages and start becoming afraid, who start becoming paranoid, who start having who are afraid of whatever this theory that the person doing the stochastic terrorism is pushing, and thus who some people unfortunately will take matters into their own hands, or at least that's what they think, and will try to solve that problem that supposedly exists. This is how stochastic terrorism works. It's when the media, when social media platforms or social media influencers, whoever it may be, anybody who has any form of influence, either that be a person or a group of people, when they, through rhetoric and through inflammatory language and through these in creating this panic, influence regular day-to-day people, working class people, into doing violence, into essentially acting on their fears, and doing whatever the stochastic terrorist or the person doing the propaganda wants them to do. This explanation might seem confusing, so I'm going to give an example of stochastic terrorism in action. So the example that I used was what happened after 9/11. For those who were born after 9/11, my case, you might have not been aware of this happening because you were a child, you were a baby, you were not even born yet, so you have no perception of that this happened or how it was beforehand. You don't really have an understanding of this. But for those who are alive, which was not my case, but unfortunately I have parents and I have done my research and I've seen the horrors, you will be aware that after 9/11, the amount of hate crimes on on Muslim people has grew substantially. In the last when I talked, oh sorry, hit my microphone, sorry for that, didn't mean to do that. When I talked about the content creation in the actual podcast rather than the blog, I gave this example, and when I was writing this article now, I went to look deeper into it. And for those who are like, nah, that didn't happen, that the xenophobia towards people of Muslim descent and Muslim people has always existed. I mean, true, but it after 9/11, because of the amount of consistent, because in media they consistently showed these images of terrorism and consistently associated terrorism with Islam. Suddenly there was a mass hysteria towards anybody who was actually was Muslim, or could even be perceived as somebody who could be Muslim, because sometimes they aren't. You can't just look at a person and know their religion, unless they have some sort of clothing which is directly related, like a Star of David or a cross around their neck. That's different. But you can't just through somebody's appearance understand who they are, or even attribute them to be terrorists. That is just pure racism and xenophobia. There is no logical there's no logical thought process there. However, because of this consistent messaging that was done by the media, these, I wouldn't call it subliminal messaging, but it definitely kind of feels like that in some senses. I mean, it's not that subliminal. Unfortunately, it's very straightforward and very clear. But this consistent propaganda showing Islam related to terrorism led to a lot of hate crimes, and to a lot of hate crimes being done towards Muslim people. Funnily enough, the place where I went to look and did my research on was an FBI webpage, which shows that even somebody or a group organization as crooked as the FBI, if even they recognize that this happens, is because it did. Like it's if somebody like the FBI is able to recognize something like this, then something is very wrong because they usually try to hide shit, as we all know. Well, not all of us, unfortunately. But they, when I was doing research, I think there was like a 1,600% uptick in hate crimes towards Muslim people, which is a lot. I don't know how accurate that number is. Of course, I didn't go doing a massive deep dive into where they got their numbers, mostly because I couldn't find it. But yeah, there was that number that they posed. But in general, it was just a lot more people who are getting hurt, which is bad. This is an example that is, I guess, less recent, but it's around this era when the term stochastic terrorism started appearing, because it's around this time when this sort of media coverage started happening, where we associated a group of people with this very negative and very traumatic experience, and thus people who were traumatized, who were afraid of another event like that happening again, were willing to neutralize anybody who they deemed to be a terrorist, which is awful and is insane and is terrifying. Of course, this didn't just happen in the U.S. This also happened throughout the rest of the world, also in Europe, and it still happens to this day, because there still is to this day a very negative perception of Muslim people in Europe, for example, and even in the U.S. Because of these old. Of this old propaganda that was pushed in the early 2000s, which was done to justify, awful things that the U.S. and the UN went on to do in the Middle East. So, and it's still very present. A more modern example of this is the one I gave about libs of TikTok. I talked about it in the article again. I thought that it was prescient for me to bring it up again, but there was also other things, and I went deeper specifically into stochastic terrorism in the form of targeting queer people. Because for those who haven't been aware and haven't noticed, it's not just libs of TikTok. There are many, many people who are doing this. You have Tucker Carlson, you have the entirety of Fox News, you have Daily Wire, you have all of these media outlets and these large content creation groups, whatever you want to call them, are all pushing this propaganda, these bullshit narratives about queer people in with the goal to target them. And in the article, I even mentioned it, how a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the propaganda that they push is eerily similar to the exact same attributes, or the same conversations, the same wording that, for example, the Nazi Party used in the 1930s and even in the 1940s during the war towards queer people. It's very, very similar. It's the idea of they are like they're sexual deviants. They're today they use the term groomers. They're groomers. They're sexual deviants. They are here to replace us. They're going to end the human race because they aren't breeders, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, because they're not producing offsprings. They are trying to brainwash our children. This is the exact same bullshit narratives that they pushed in Nazi Germany. And this is happening in the US just openly on the internet, like nothing is happening, and not nobody, that's not really true, but a lot of people are just acting as if, it's just a bunch of conservatives being like nutcases. No, this is further than that. There's being a nutcase, and then there's this, which is just blatant fascism, just openly, just open air, just there. Like, hey, look, this is what we believe in. We are literally repeating 100-year-old fascist propaganda. Just blatantly there. It's just happening. And that's terrifying, because I wish more people were talking about it, just being like, hey, this is literally just these are just fascists. Like, what are we talking about? Like, how are we not more afraid of this? Of course, there are a lot of people, and I think that generally, at least in the last few months, I feel like a lot of more people are being aware of how fast fascism is suddenly growing throughout the West, and it's terrifying. And I think a lot more people are becoming aware of it. But for the last few years, it's not been taken as serious as I wish it would have been. But these people like, for example, Ben Shapiro with the Daily Wire, or Matt Walsh, the woman from Limbs of TikTok, her name I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try to do that. Tucker Carlson, the fucking whoever works at Fox News, they're consistently pushing these false narratives. And it's even not just the media; it's also politicians. So you have Donald Trump, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think. Yeah, Marjorie. No, I forgot her first name. That one, uh, the crazy lady. You have who was the guy from Florida? I can't remember his name. The Ron DeSantis. You have all of these public figures who have a lot of influence, and not just influence; they have political power, which is terrifying. They are pushing these narratives, and they're all being supported by massive conglomerates who are lobbying them into furthering these ideas, and it's happening in large scale, and not just in the U.S. I feel like it started a lot in the U.S., but it's definitely now been exported to Europe. And for me, being somebody who lives in Europe, I'm now starting to see this exact same behavior here, and I hate it. I hate it with a passion, and it terrifies the hell out of me. And this is awful because these groups of people are consistently incentivizing and pushing these narratives that queer people are these monsters, right? It first started specifically with trans people, with the same kind of propaganda around bathrooms, which is something which has always happened. First, it happened with women, when women weren't even allowed to have bathrooms, and then we segregated them, and then created women's bathrooms. Then it happened with people of color, and now they're trying to make it happen with trans people, segregating trans people into their own bathrooms, or simply, I don't even think that's what's happening. I think they straight up just don't want trans people to even exist. So they're trying to wipe out any chance of a trans person being able to exist, or trying to repress trans people back into the closet and trying to act as if they're not trans, which is impossible. So there's a lot of this happening. And the reality is that this constant paranoia and these fears being created around trans people, which then evolved into also including queer people in general, the rest of the LGBTQ community. Suddenly, we're also seeing an uptick in hate crimes towards queer people. Perfectly normal, not normal in the sense that it should be happening, but it's cause and effect. If there's going to be stochastic terrorism, if there's going to be massive groups of people who have tremendous amount of influence, which are constantly planting these seeds of fear and hysteria into the minds of millions, there is going to be some people which are going to do dangerous things. And we saw this, for example, with all the shootings that were happening. For example, in that one a gay bar, which I can't remember the name of. Trans people being murdered. In, for example, even in the UK, with what's her name, Bianca Gray, I think, Brianna Gray. I can never remember her name. I think I got it right. Who was killed. Like there's a lot of shit happening, and it's all due to those who have power and those who have influence, basically creating these false narratives and completely, Brianna, gay with it. Gay? I don't know how to read it. It's a British name. I don't know how to read it. Brianna Gay. Creating this complete just mass of mass hysteria, this mass amount of fear, this just complete chaos, to the point where anytime anybody sees a trans person or sees a queer person, they're instantly going to want to beat them up. And there's also another facet of it, which is that because some people who have always wanted to do that type of stuff, they're not just doing it now because they suddenly have the urge to do it. No, they've always had the urge to do that type of stuff, but because it's now becoming more frequent and, unfortunately enough, becoming more acceptable to do that type of stuff, or more people find it acceptable to do that type of stuff, more people are doing it because it's like, oh, it doesn't matter anymore, trans people, they see it as an opportunity, right? That's also terrifying. But this is what stochastic terrorism does. It normalizes violence. It creates this environment of fear, chaos, of violence. And when this happens, then there's a next step, which I talked about in the article, which is that when you create an environment where this type of behavior becomes normalized, or not normalized, but rather more frequent and more socially acceptable, what happens is that then it's much easier to, first of all, you can get votes. You can gain a lot of votes through this way, because if you, as a right-wing conservative or straight-up fascist, are the only person who seemingly has the answers towards these issues, right? The issues of the replacement theory and all these bullshit narratives, which are based off gobbledygook. You suddenly have a large section of the population which sees you as the only way out, or the only way to fix these issues, no matter how barbaric, no matter how monstrous and horrific the solutions are. And this allows you to get a lot of votes. And when that happens, you, as a politician who has always had these violent and blatant fascist ideals, but were never allowed or able to fully see them out and fully act upon them, suddenly you are able to do so, because the general population is more accepting of those fascist ideas. This is how we've been seeing such a large rise of fascism around the globe, because suddenly people are just going insane. People are seeing immigrants as a huge threat. Queer people. There's this mass hysteria happening, which is allowing the right to keep growing, and then it's just a vicious cycle. The more the right grows, the more these ideas grow, and then the more these ideas grow, the more fascism can grow, and it kind of feeds onto each other, and that's horrible and terrifying. And this is especially terrifying because it's allowing it's creating a lot of divides between people. We're seeing a lot more people being divided again, which has both good things and bad things. This means that there's a lot of, for example, people being drawn to the left. We see that, for example, now with the Palestine, with the situation in Gaza, where there's a lot of people who are going onto the streets protesting. For example, the current protests that are happening in universities and campuses all across the globe. These are students who are leftists, who want to stop a genocide, who want to stop the genocide on the Palestinian people to happen, and are fighting against the fascist Israeli state. And it's clear that there's a lot of people who are being drawn into fighting for justice and fighting for what is right. But then there's also the facet of people who are usually filthy rich, who are also supported by the state of Israel, who are using rhetoric and using false narratives, saying that people who support Palestine are anti-Semitic, they are anti-Jew, all these things, which is not true, because there's plenty of Jewish people who support the pro-Palestinian movement, and also Israel does not represent Jewish people. It does not. It is not anything like that. And so, for you being against the violent colonialist fascist state of Israel does not mean that you want to wipe out Jewish people in the entire planet. That is not what that means. That is just some made up lie to try to paint pro-Palestinian people, people who want to end the genocide, as genocidal themselves. It's bullshit. So there's a clear kind of divide there. And I use that example because, to me, at least from my perspective, that is an example of how you can, through the power of the media and by these creating these false narratives, you can create a massive rift between in a society. And I feel like, and I might be wrong, that this is happening not just in this scenario, but that in general there's, with the rise of fascism as a sort of knee-jerk reaction, or a sort of logical reaction, cause and effect. There's always going to be, if there's one force, there's always going to be its negation, its opposition. With the rise of fascism, there's going to be a rise in leftist ideas. There's going to be a rise of support towards communism. There's going to be a rise in supports towards socialism. And whilst the rise of leftist ideology is good, and that's what we want, it's terrifying that it's happening because of a tremendous rise of fascism. Because no matter how it's good, and I'm happy to see that leftists are banding together and are fighting, and it seems like the left is gaining traction again. I still can't ignore the fact that fascism is rampantly growing, and that they are the ones in power, and that the left is not. That's not good. But as anything, it's stochastic terrorism is just another tool of capitalism. I'm starting to feel like a scratch record who is constantly repeating the same thing. But as a Marxist, as somebody who understands the how capitalism works, and how capitalism is the system that perpetuates the issues that we have, and is the cause of others. Some of these problems come from prior systems, others are new, but capitalism keeps them all alive regardless. Stochastic terrorism is just another tool. It's just another tool in the large, tool shed that capitalism has. In the same way that it has racism, or it has queer phobia, that it has the patriarchy, which encompasses sexism and queer phobia. All these different tools that it uses to divide and conquer, that it uses to turn the working class against each other, and it in turn making it so that we, the working people, we, the regular people that just want to have a good life, who just want to be able to wake up in the morning and not be afraid that we're going to die or whatever the hell, they turn us against each other. And that stops, first of all, it stops collective action from happening. That stops people from banding together and fighting against the oppression. It's consistently the same stuff. It becomes kind of tiring for me to talk about it, honestly, because it feels like I'm just constantly repeating myself. But there's nothing new to say here. It's the same thing every fucking time. Every issue that we have is due to a group of people who wants to keep their power, and thus have to do stuff to make sure that stays that way. And that always has to do with creating infighting, creating panic, creating chaos, creating violence, creating death, destruction, etc., etc. And unfortunately, that always affects us, the working class, more than the capitalist class, for sure. And stochastic terrorism is no different. I feel like by now, if you're listening to this, you should be able to understand, okay, if stochastic terrorism is to create violence against minorities, and taking the concept of the scapegoat to a whole new level, it's very clear that, hey, okay, this is what's happening. This is a way for the media to create violence, to separate us, to divide us, to hurt specific groups of specific minorities, those who are already systemically oppress them even more. It's just the same thing all over again. It's the same bullshit every fucking time, and we have to fight against it. I would like to take a few more things, which is, for example, the term stochastic terrorism. Whilst it might be a new term, I don't remember if I said this in the beginning of the episode. It's nothing new, right? This tactic is an old tactic, and stochastic terrorism is just the newest term, the newest manifestation, let's say, of this issue, right? It's just the latest form of it, or the latest moniker moniker, is that the correct term? Not really. I don't know. The latest name that we gave to this issue, but it's happening. It's been happening for a very long time. I mean, I just mentioned it, how it happened, and during during World War I and World War II. How it happened, how it's been happening ever since then. And even before the term stochastic terrorism was really known, the concept of stochastic terrorism was happening already. So it's nothing new in that sense. But there's another thing which I would like to talk about, which is why specifically do they use stochastic terrorism, at least in the modern day? Why stochastic terrorism? Why this method of deploying, violence on the working class? And what I talk about in the article is that this is an exploit, essentially. They know that, one, for example, the media and the internet more recently is a very easy way to reach millions, billions of people, right? It's an easy way to reach thousands upon thousands upon thousands, about millions of people. That's number one. And number two is that the way that they do they create their message, right? The way that they push their message, the language they use, the terms they use, the way they speak, is all designed in a way that allows them to keep plausible deniability. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that the way they do it, they always do it in a way that the stochastic terrorist, the one incentivizing the violence, can never be directly linked to the one who actually does the violence, right? The one that actually commits the crime, the one that actually kills people, whatever it may be. This way, they are able to get away with anything, right? They're able to consistently push these false narratives, consistently push these false messages, and never be guilty of anything. They didn't do anything. All I did was talk. And I'm allowed to push I have freedom of speech. I'm allowed to talk about my views. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. The issue is that words have consequences. Words have weight. Words, the things you say have real life consequences. They're not just words you're throwing out to the vacuum of space, which you can't even hear. No, these words have influence. And when you are a person with influence on the internet, whatever you say is going to influence people and their actions. And you can see this consistently from people like Matt Walsh and the lady from Libs of TikTok, even Ben Shapiro, that when they are accused of stochastic terrorism, when they're accused of incentivizing these crimes, they instantly go hands off and go like, no, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I'm just I'm just doing what's right. I am just preaching my message. I'm just doing my thing. I didn't tell anybody to hurt anybody. I didn't do that. That's true. They didn't directly go, hey, kill these people. Hey, go to this place, murder them. No, they didn't do anything like that. They're just saying, hey, this situation, like they do like a news coverage, like, all right, this place, for example, in the case of Libs of TikTok, they consistently go, hey, look, this school is brainwashing children. This school is grooming our children. Period. That's all they do. That's all she does. She does that. She goes, "Hey, this thing is happening there. Doesn't matter if it's true. It's usually not. Never is. It's all bullshit, conspiracy theories." She never says, we'll go to this place, cause death and destruction, do this, kill children, whatever. No, she doesn't do anything. She just says, hey, look, this thing is happening. And then her supporters, her viewers look at it and then act upon, and then look at it and go, hey, look, okay, we got to do something about this. They band together and then they do the horrible things they do. And this way, the Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, these figures can keep plausible deniability because they are not directly linked and with what happened, right? And no matter how obvious it is, and no matter how much proof there is that they're clearly creating these situations, and even there was one, I think it was like last year. Trying to remember which of the many shootings in the U.S. it was, but that there was this one guy who even had a swastika tattoo. If somebody who's listening to this remembers what it is, and I would love for you to leave a comment to remind the other viewers what it was. But it was this guy who had a swastika tattoo who I think shot up a mall. I think so, or something like a shopping center, something like that. I remember that there was like this whole thing where he had a blog where he was consistently, like showing off his arms, his weaponry, and his tattoos and everything. And I even remember that there was evidence that he was, that he was an avid supporter of organizations like the Daily Wire and other figures that push these blatantly fascist ideas, and who who consistently push this rhetoric that queer people are groomers, whatever it may be. And even then it's like clearly obvious this person who did this crime clearly was already had these influences, and yet nothing happened. There was those who influenced this person into doing this crime were never, and are probably never, going to be deemed guilty for any of these deaths. Another situation like this, for example, you can say that it was for example, Alex Jones with the was it the fuck, what was the one school? Sorry, I randomly remember this one situation, and I did not write about this, so that's why I don't remember the name of the school. It was Sandy Hook, right? Exactly. Sandy Hook is another example of stochastic terrorism, right? Where it's Alex Jones making up random bullshit lies. I don't even remember which ones it was in this case, and then real people in the real world getting hurt. And thankfully, the parents of the children who were killed in the Sandy Hook shooting wanted Alex Jones to be held accountable, and seemingly that it did work. Seemingly, for once, the American justice system actually seemed to do its job of being a justice system. But this is just one case of many, and Alex Jones just got unlucky, I guess. I don't really have that much faith in the American justice system. I don't think anybody does. I think that's a general understanding that the American justice system is just the worst. I'm not saying it's the worst in the world, but it's definitely not good. But all of this violence is just I wouldn't say it normalized, but it's definitely starting to be, unfortunately. But it's just it's fine. It's I didn't do anything. I didn't directly tell you to kill anybody, so it's fine. And people like Ben Shapiro, people like Matt Walsh and these monsters are consistently getting away with incentivizing others to do their dirty work. And we're just watching. We're just in the sidelines watching it happen. And that's horrible. And when when this happens, you start creating this atmosphere. Like I've said this many times by now, but you create this atmosphere of hatred. You create this atmosphere of fear. You create this uh, this atmosphere where everything is just rotten and awful, and people are going at each other's throats for fuck knows what, and it's terrifying, and it's happening uh, more and more. And in the article, I even go into the specific case of Europe because in Europe, of course, this has stochastic terrorism has been happening too. It's just that it's not been as, I guess, present, at least from my perception. I could be wrong. You can definitely correct me on this. At least from my perception, doesn't seems to be as present or not as effective or as dire as it has been in the U.S. I feel like in the U.S. it's definitely been happening more, but I think that's also due to the nature of U.S. Of the U.S. culture of like this idea of like freedom of speech and everything is basically all right because you have freedom of speech that thus you can say whatever the fuck you want. And in Europe, there's not that doesn't really go like that. It's that idea of just fuck it, whatever, freedom of speech, let's do anything, is not as has not as been as widespread until I feel like pretty recently. Definitely after the pandemic, where it seems that Europe itself is also very much going down the pipeline, just like the U.S. has in the past, and also with the growth of fascism. Stochastic terrorism is becoming more and more prevalent and more apparent and clear, and it's happening a lot more. And and I myself see it every day in the case of Portugal, where in Portugal, we've always been extremely racist towards a lot of people, but still to a lot of different groups of people. But one that's been more present in recent years, or at least that is a larger talking point, has always been gypsies. I think that's the correct terminology. If it's not, I'm sorry. Even like people from the northern part of Africa, people from the Middle East, refugees, etc. The constant narrative that the media pushes is that these people are essentially parasites. These people are coming here to steal our jobs, coming here to steal our social security money. The same bullshit rhetoric, lies. It's always the same shit. But for anybody that knows anything about economics and actually understands the important role that that immigrants have in an economy, understands that, for example, here in the case of Portugal, immigrants and people who are not natively from Portugal contributed infinitely more to social security than Portuguese people ourselves. Thus, our country and would basically not function without immigrants. And the supposed parasites are actually the ones who are contributing more to the economy than than all the other Portuguese people combined, which shows that in some way the Portuguese people themselves, they are the parasites, and they are the ones who are benefiting from another population. But that's just turning it on its head and not really a productive conversation to have in that sense. But it's definitely this idea that the immigrants, it's bullshit. Like don't go after that. It's immigration is always going to happen, and now with global warming, with global warming, it's going to become more and more prevalent because there's going to be a lot of ecological refugees, right? People who are running or leaving their place of birth because it's just unbearable to live there because of the weather, because of the climate. It's just going to be just hell to live in certain places on Earth, and people are naturally going to move around because of the climate, and so immigration is inevitable. It's not something you can just stop from one day to the other. It's going to always happen, no matter if you want it or not. It's always going to happen, in the same sense that people are always going to consume drugs, no matter if they're legal or illegal, the same way that abortions are always going to happen, whether they're illegal or legal, or the way that people are always going to have homosexual relationships, whether you want them or not. People are always going to be trans, whether you want them or not. No matter, there's no law which can stop a certain thing from just existing. No, laws do not work that way. Laws are not don't do miracles. They don't rewrite reality as we know it. So in Europe, there's been a staggering growth of fascism, and specifically when it comes to immigration, the conversations around it are eerily similar to those to the mindsets that Europeans had between the First World War and the Second World War. So those years which led into the Second World War happening, which saw the rise of fascism in Europe, for example, in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, the famous fascist states of Europe, which in Portugal we had Salazar, then in Spain it's Frank. I'm not sure how he's called. In Germany, it's obviously Hitler, and in Italy, it's obviously Mussolini. Those are probably the two most known ones. But these ideas of in the case of, mostly in Portugal, we had the idea of Portugal had to be this isolated place where nobody could enter or leave. Italy and the others had this idea of race purity. Portugal not as much because we still had our colonies, but there was definitely the idea of Portugal being an empire, and it was more imperialistic rather than racially purity. But whatever, it's fascism, it's all stupid, I don't care. It's all bad. Who could have guessed? But these ideas are coming back. These ideas are growing rampantly in Europe. In Portugal, we had elections recently, and our far right, low key fascist party grew to having 50 seats in our parliament. And last week on the 25th of April, which is both the day where Italy and Portugal celebrates their liberty from fascism, we had to celebrate 50 years of liberty, knowing that we have 50 seats in our parliament dedicated to fascists. That's that's not good. And then, for example, in Spain, far right parties are growing. In Italy, we have a far right party in power. In Germany, the AfD is growing. In Belgium, we have the Vlaams Belang, which is also growing and wants to split Belgium into two countries. You have in the Netherlands what just happened with with their elections. In the UK, thankfully, it seems like the Tory party is just dead. But what's come to replace it is going to be the Labour Party, which is a fucking massive fraud, which has no actual intentions of being a Labour Party. It's just a more mild sort of Democrat Party, or the equivalent of the Democrats versus the Republicans in the US. It's just that you have the Tories and you have the Labour Party, which are equally liberals, have no intention of actually fighting for worker rights. It's just a whole lot of bullshit. Thankfully, it seems like the UK is going to go slightly less to the right, but it's still going to be a right-wing country regardless, and that's whatever. That's not a big win for anybody. It's just the lesser of two evils, I guess, and the lesser is questionable if it's that much less. But these fascism is clearly growing in Europe, and the question is, how is stochastic terrorism? How to what growth is stochastic terrorism going to have? How is it going to start influence? Because no matter if you have, for example, in the case of Italy, you have their prime minister who, she says she's not an actual fascist. She's just, conservative. She's very traditional, but she's not homophobic, but she's clearly homophobic and is now implanting rules, taking children away from their queer parents. Just awesome stuff, which I hate and that makes me want to cry. Because what I was trying to say is that I lost my train of thought there. The point is that these far right parties are taking it cool, and what I mean by that is that they're slowly creeping towards fascism, but they're starting off in a very kind of chill out way, right? They're not going to go full fledged straight away because they know that that's going to cause some issues. So at least that's what I think is going to happen, and it seems like what is happening. It's definitely that's what's been happening in the U.S. is that with stochastic terrorism, if they deploy stochastic terrorism even more, they're able to slowly normalize these fascist ideas. They're able to slowly, within the working class, nurture these little fascists, and are able to create a lot of support for these fascist ideas, and they're also able to basically do hate crimes on marginalized communities without ever having to do any government work, right? Without ever having to deploy the state to do crimes. And then further on, what I think is going to happen is that yes, when the general perception of the public is that yes, these ideas are acceptable, or that these things are acceptable, they are going to slowly become, government to the state is going to become more and more fascist as the time goes on. At least that's what it seems like is happening, and that's my perspective. I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I really, really hope I'm wrong, because why the fuck would I want to be right in this case? Or it's like, oh, fascism is gonna grow. I sure hope I'm wrong. Yeah, I do really hope I'm wrong, because this is horrible. Millions of people are going to suffer, and I don't just mean people in Europe. People across the globe are going to suffer. People who seek refuge in Europe, they are going to suffer. The Europeans are going to suffer. People who live under the influence of the West and the imperial, of the global North, are going to suffer. Even the global South, which are consistently screwed over by the global North due to neocolonialism and to capitalist imperialism. Even they are going to suffer. Even they are going to suffer because of our slow reform into fascism. And even the global South is already seeing, traits similar to ours. With, for example, Milei in Argentina, who's a blatant, just neoliberal darling, who is just being is doing austerity at levels never seen before, to the point where those organizations which deal with debt and stuff, like government debt and stuff like that, are basically being like, you're doing too much austerity. They think that Milei is doing too much austerity, and that's insane. That the organizations which benefit from austerity are thinking that they're doing too much austerity. That's how you know that guy is going too far. But we're seeing other countries, in other places in the world growing these fascist ideas in places where typically that didn't really happen, unless it was due to the influence of a direct influence, or a direct action due, for example, to the U.S. Whilst of course it's very clear that Argentina is being supported by the U.S. currently in their actions, but it's not like they're going there doing military action, putting in a dictator. That's not what's happening. But it's a new form of it. Let's say it's a more it's the growth of fascism hidden in a thin veil of a bullshit democratic farce, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, what I was trying to say with all this is that there's a clear growth in fascism across the globe, and of course that also, that's due to, I kind of got lost in the conversation here, because obviously this episode is about stochastic terrorism, but stochastic terrorism is not, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's not just one thing. No, it's a tool of capitalism, and capitalism is causing the growth of fascism across the globe. So we must talk about these things in general. And whilst in the article, and even during this episode, I've mostly talked about the West. I've mostly talked about the global North. I've mostly talked about the U.S. and Europe. Stochastic terrorism doesn't just exist in these places, and these issues don't exist in these places because it doesn't. We live in a planet. We do not live in these little isolated worlds which are completely separate from each other. All of this is a global issue. This is an international issue, and for us leftists, for us Marxists, we must understand that every issue is intersectionalist. Every issue is interconnected and has, it must be solved in unison, and also that we must be internationalists. We must not fall down to the progressive patriotic bullshit. We must understand that there are no countries. There are no groups that we must divide ourselves under. We are, at the end of the day, all humans, and we live on one planet, and we must fight for the rights and the survival for all humans in the entire planet in its totality. And to quote a person I very much look up to, Yanis Varoufakis, that borders or the scars of the world. They're scars, right? They're scars of war, scars of violence, and we need to heal those scars and see that they end, and fight for collective rights and well-being. But the point of this article and the point of this episode is that it's clear that the world is currently in a very troubled track. We cannot predict what is going to happen. We can only do educated guesses. We can look at the past. We can apply historical materialism. We can through the study of history, we can see the patterns, and we can try to understand where we are headed. And with that knowledge, we must try to plan beforehand what is going to happen, and how we the left can finally succeed in our goal of creating a society without oppression, without racism, without sexism, without queerphobia, without any form of discrimination, and in a world where people have access to free healthcare, to free education, to free housing, to their basic needs. To have access to basically being able to live a life without having to constantly worry about if they're going to be able to survive or not. And to be able to give people a dignity and give them a good life. That is what we must do. How is that going to play out? I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not educated enough, and I don't think that anybody can really predict what's going to happen. I think all we can do, again, is very educated guesses. Unfortunately, those educated guesses only they only are worth so much, and they're not reality. We can't just be like, no, this is what's going to happen, and thus that's what's going to happen. I can't just say that, oh, we're going to have a growth of fascism, and then naturally the left is going to grow, and then the left is finally going to reign supreme, and they're finally going to be able to topple capitalism, and they're finally going to be able to build a global socialist society. I can't say that. That's what I wish would happen, maybe, but I can't say that with certainty. So it's very hard to know what's going to happen and to really feel, I don't know, optimistic, I guess. I definitely understand that some leftists at this point in time can feel very defeated, very scared, and feel like the world is doomed. Because, stuff is definitely complicated as it is right now, and life is not looking good right now, but who knows? All we can do is keep fighting, keep motivated, and make sure that we never stop fighting and that we never stop being revolutionaries. Anyways, that's basically all I had to say regarding the article. I could go more in depth into other stuff, but I can't really remember anything to talk about regarding stochastic terrorism. There are many other examples of stochastic terrorism that I could give. Unfortunately, there are way too many examples that I could give. But I feel like I've already repeated myself a lot to this video, so I'm not going to get much further into into it. But I would like to now talk about other stuff. Regarding Politdigm itself, these last few weeks have been interesting. I took a week break, a break that took a week, 1 week break. There you go. After the last episode of the podcast, during that week, I allowed myself to rest. I allowed myself to work on the content that was going to come out in the next few weeks, in the 2 weeks that have passed now. And it was fun. It was fun to finally have a break. Currently, when it comes to school, for those who don't know, I'm a student. It's a little complicated. I'm definitely overwhelmed and having a hard time. Very reminiscent of how Alpha was feeling last trimester. This case, it's just me, but I'm also feeling a little overworked and very tired. So I'm trying to do my best to be able to keep up the schedule. I have not been doing Politdigm reads. I'm currently trying to figure out how I'm going to do Politdigm reads. I've yet to record the next episode of the Politdigm reads series because I just haven't had the time and mental health essentially to be able to sit down and read a book for an hour or two or whatever time frame it may be. So I'm currently trying to work out how I'm going to do Politdigm reads. I'm going to keep doing Politdigm reads. I'm just trying to understand how and when I'm going to be able to do so and have the mental capacity to do so. Regarding Politdigm Sparks is going amazingly. The first episode saw a lot of a lot of views. It's our most successful video. Of course, we are posting also YouTube Shorts. They're like little teasers. They're like 10 or 15 seconds long. Those have been seeing a shit ton of views. They have like 400 views each. The two shorts that we've posted, they're technically the most successful videos that we have on the channel, but those are shorts. But so I'm not really gonna count them. But when it comes to just regular videos, the Politdigm Sparks first episode is definitely the most successful video we've had so far. The second episode came out a few days ago, or 2 days ago by the time this podcast comes out. And it was it's had definitely not as successful for now, but I also know why, so I'm not too worried about it. But it's seeing a few likes and people are liking the content, and I believe that it's a matter of keep making Politdigm Sparks videos, making new content, and eventually the algorithm is going to pick it up, and I think that people are going to find the content interesting and fun to watch. We've also been posting on TikTok. On TikTok, we've been getting also a lot of views. We also have the Politdigm Clips channel on YouTube, which is basically just only a YouTube Shorts channel that we have, where I'm basically cutting up the Politdigm Sparks videos and posting them in several parts. I'm not sure if that's going to be that way for the rest of eternity, but for now, that's what the Politdigm Clips channel is going to be. And further on, I have plans for other stuff, but for now, that's all it's going to be. And also that channel has also only recently started getting views. For some reason, like the first week, none of the clips got views. I don't know why. Maybe the algorithm just didn't pick it up or something. Not sure. But the last few clips have been. So seeing that channel seems to be growing a little bit, which is nice. But yeah, it seems like Politdigm has entered a new era. I like to organize my. I have like a little. For those who don't know what Notion is, it's like this program where it allows you to like make lists and tables and these organize your content and stuff. And I use it a lot to kind of organize my what I do on a daily basis. And I have this like list for all the type of events or important things that happened regarding Politdigm, for example. And I have like them under eras, like these. I like to divide the type of occurrences through eras, and I've deemed this a new era of Politdigm that we've entered. And as of now, it's only been 2 weeks. It's too early to assess how the future of Politdigm is going to look like, and how it's going to change throughout these next few months. But it's clear that it's going to be an exciting future, and that it seems for now to be it's going to go well, and that it's going well. So I'm excited for that. Other than that, yeah, there's not been much going on with Politdigm. Of course, we're always looking for people to help out. For those who have never, even after all those times that I've told you, if you want to support us in non-monetary ways, you can check out the website. Even for those who have never done that, if you go to the website, you'll see that the non-monetary way to support us is through, for example, being an editor and basically doing, you know, supporting us with your skills, you know, with the ways that you can, I guess, dedicate time to Politdigm, and that's the way to support us. And of course, you know, with Alpha being gone, you know, there was always you know, vacant places for people to join Politdigm and to be part of this organization and this movement. You know, with, you know, for example, hosting your own show or whatever you want to do. It all depends on you know, the type of person you are. You know, more than ever, you know, I'm always welcoming people to join the community and to, you know, for example, join our Discord server to, you know, directly talk with us and be part of the community, and wants to be a more direct member of the Politdigm team. And yeah, like it's always welcome. You're always welcome to be part of this journey in whatever form you want to be. If it's just through a viewer, or if it's by a Patreon supporter, or it's by a another type of supporting, whatever it may be, or if it's being directly a member of the Politdigm team, everything is welcome and everything is great. But yeah, I I planned this podcast to honestly be a little longer. I wasn't sure how long the episodes in the second season would be, due to me changing up a little bit the format. But I guess this one is going to be a little shorter than I thought it could be, I guess, or it's going to be pretty much the same size as the episodes in the last season, but that's fine. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Um, you Yeah, I don't know. That's all I gotta do. I hope that you are doing fine. I hope that you, the listener, the viewer, are having a great day, and that listening to this podcast inspired you and made you want to fight for a better world. And if you did enjoy this content, of course, you can again support us on YouTube, on Patreon, or as you know, as I just explained, you can support us in non-monetary ways. You can also join our Discord, to talk to me. Even Alpha, he's still in there. You can talk with him and talk with our other community members, and be part of the community. You can follow us on social media. You can interact with us, support us. We very much appreciate when our viewers support us and show their love and support. It's very encouraging, and it definitely pushes us to do more. And yeah, with that being said, I got nothing else to say. So yeah, thank you all so much for listening or watching, and I'll see you all next month for the second episode of the second season of the Politdigm podcast. Goodbye, everybody.